Hello, YouTube. I'm John, and I have something to say. Before I do, I'd like to ask you if you like the content I provide, please like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell notification button so you can be alerted for future content releases I have. With that being said, the thumbnail that you clicked on for this video is about chemtrails, or really scientifically, geoengineering. And I wanted to talk about what people would term this as a conspiracy theory versus what's actually reality. And so let's talk about conspiracy theories. When people use this term to try to marginalize or uh, disregard or debunk or maybe even make the person who's coming up or who's targeted with that label to seem a bit crazy. Let's take a look at the words that make up conspiracy theory themselves. So, a conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to commit an act prohibited by law or to commit a lawful act by means prohibited by law. So, a conspiracy isn't necessarily doing anything illegal, so that word isn't really appropriate. And theory is a scientific term. You have a theory before you can prove a scientific fact, and that theory drives research for number one to find facts that will back the theory, and also to drive repeatability. So a thing has to be repeatable or provable, right? So um, the provable thing I get with regard to conspiracy theory, but if the conspiracy portion of that term is left out, then you just have theory, which is part of a scientific process. So let's move on. And I want to really talk about this geoengineering or chemtrailing because to call it a conspiracy theory isn't really backed up by history. So if you trust your government, I'm happy for you, but are you a bit deluded in doing so? So let's take a look at, and I'd kind of look at the disclaimer that past performance is not always indicative of future performance, but in many cases, the past actions of a person or group of people or a government can be indicators of their current or future actions. So let's take a look back. This article, and I'll put the links to these articles in the description box below, so you can do your own research and kind of maybe look further into this. But an article from the New York Times reads as follows: in a 1953 Cold War experiment, the Army sprayed clouds of toxic materials over Minneapolis, and I'm inserting the word Minnesota, dozens of times and may have caused miscarriages and stillbirths, and public television station here has reported. The spraying in Minneapolis and the other cities were described then as part of an effort to develop an aerosol screen to protect Americans from fallout in case of an atomic attack, according to the report on Wednesday night by KTCA. The material sprayed in Minneapolis was zinc cadmium sulfide, a suspected carcinogen, and the U.S. Army actually tested how chemicals would disperse during biological warfare. So now we're going from nuclear to biological, two totally different things, but being used for the excuses for this, using Americans for guinea pigs. One of the sites sprayed in Minneapolis was a public elementary school, where the former students have reported unusual numbers of stillbirths, miscarriages, the report said. Okay, so now we have a history prior to the current time, or the past couple decades, that people have noticed this geoengineering or chemtrailing, right? Way back in the 1950s, they used the population as guinea pigs. And typically, and I'll even talk about the stealth bombers from the 80s and 90s, they were developed 10, 20 years beforehand. In fact, many things the government does without the population's notice is done 10, 20, 30, 40 years before the public even becomes aware. It's all done in secret. And those aren't conspiracy theories, those are conspiracy facts. They conspire against us. The next article I have here is from NPR, and this is about the nuclear testing on our soldiers during the Cold War. And this particular soldier, I'm just doing a little excerpt here from the article, but the gentleman's name is Harley. His last name is Harley. And it says, Harley says during some of the tests, he and others on site observed where we're in a trench. Other times he was standing out in the open. He said they were told that they would not be put in harm's way. They had no motive, they had a motto then, They had a motto then, atoms for peace. And I'm 17 years old and I buy into it because I'm thinking they spent a lot of money training me to be a soldier. They wouldn't intentionally put me in harm's way. And this is in 1957. We dropped those bombs in Japan in 1945. So they've known for 12 years the effects of radiation on populations. And go next step here. I'm going to put in the link below. I'm not going to play it here. But in 1962, President Johnson was speaking at a college in Texas, and he talks about weather control, and those who control the weather will control the world. So I'd ask that you look into this geoengineering and global warming, climate change, all that. I'm not really a big fan of the notion. I think the science is flawed, but that's a topic for another day. But here's the question. Do you want them blocking our sun? And think about it. The sun is the source of all life on Earth, from the bugs to the plants, the ocean life, for our oxygen, everything. Who are they to play God with the rest of us and our air that we breathe, and the sun that we absorb, and the food that we eat? And I'll end this video with one quick notion here. It's right from John 8:32 in the Bible, chapter 8, verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Wake up, America.